You're listening to the Current Plays Podcast. Season 3, Episode 23, Ezra and Nehemiah. Now please welcome our hosts, Jordan and Thomas. And welcome back, our faithful listeners. This week we are talking about Ezra and Nehemiah by Garphill Games, designed by S.J. McDonald and Shem Phillips, with art by Sam Phillips. Yeah. This is another one in the Ancient Anthology line from Garphill Games, which you know that we love. This one's themed around rebuilding the city of Jerusalem and the temple in Jerusalem. But Thomas, why don't you describe it to us a little bit?
Yeah. So this is an interesting themed one, right? So a lot of this ancient anthology line, I suppose, focuses on some ancient civilization. You know, Hadrian's Wall was Romans around Hadrian's Wall time period. Skara Brae was, I believe Scottish, and is Skara Brae like an actual location?
Nice.
I figured it. Yeah, where they have all these midden pyramid sort of things out of I don't know, midden is the right word, but they have the dirt pyramids kind of thing. So this one takes sort of like almost like a biblical kind of look at things. Like obviously Jerusalem is a city and it was sacked many times and was rebuilt many times as well. But I find what's interesting about this one is that it, as far as I know, doesn't have a huge following because that sort of theme frightens people off.
Yeah, I've seen posts on Reddit where people are like, "Oh, I haven't played this because of the theme, but it sounds great." And it's like, yeah, it is great. You should give it a try.
And it's so unfortunate because it's a great game, right? And yeah, and it's honestly it's a bit of a complex one. So we played it the other night together, and then the very next day, it was my birthday, and my wife will play one game with me on my birthday. So I was like, okay, this is the one I just played it. I want to play it again, kind of thing, right?
Nice.
So she played it, and it was definitely a
too much for her.
Yes and no. I feel like she did well for sort of how complex this game can be.
Yeah.
There's definitely some thinky aspects to this. So basically, you have really what it comes down to is three main areas to sort of focus on.
Yeah.
You have like a Levite track and a temple track where you're essentially donating various goods, stone and gold, to the temple for victory points, or burning off cinders and wood at the altar for victory points that way, right? Where you're kind of going up on a altar track, and that can lead to victory points and other bonuses as well, right? So that's like one area of the game that you can focus on. So that Levite area. Then you have the scholar area, which is where you are sending your essentially your workers to become scribes and write scriptures, kind of thing. And I think this is sort of, if you look at some images online of the board, I suppose not set up because you kind of cover the artwork. There's scripture, I guess, shorthand on these scrolls. So it'll say like a passage number.
I've never seen this artwork before because it's so set up. So
exactly, yeah. So and it'll just say like, the name and then the passage or whatever. But you cover it up with tiles that provide various bonuses, right? So that's the sort of the scribe area, and then there's also, like, within the scribe area, there's a tent area where you're traveling your, I guess, missionaries almost around, and you're moving a tent is what you're doing, right? And that tent, as you move the tent, you pick up bonuses and victory points and stuff like that as well, right?
Yeah,
So
it really reminds me of the Dragon Guild in Wormspan, and I'm not sure which one came first,
right, yeah, yeah,
Wormspan or this one. But yeah, it's like the exact same thing, like the same mechanism.
yeah, where you move around the yeah, yeah. I like it. It's and it's a nice little, almost like this one feels like there's different modules that you can work on, right? So you could go the scribe group and then just totally ignore placing scribes on the scrolls and just focus on that sort of tent path, right? If you
Mhm.
decided to do that, right?
I usually forget all about the tents. It seems like a secondary thing, but I went pretty heavy on it this game, and it was really good.
Yeah, 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 yeah. I feel like the scribe area, the tent area, is probably the hardest one to wrap your head around, especially if you're a new player, because it's seeming there's a lot of iconography on those scrolls and around the tent area that you kind of have to get used to first. Um, but yeah, that's that area, and then you have the wall, rebuilding the wall. That's the next area you can basically take your turns doing, right? And in that case, you'll be pulling off resources, rubble from the wall, and then using those resources and then other resources you've collected to build parts of the wall. And I from a thematic point of view, each location on this wall for the walls of Jerusalem are it's like broken down rubble basically. It's there's a cracked shape in the wall, and as you build a wall there, you actually take one of your cards, which is like a fresh bricked background kind of thing, and you place it on the wall. So you know you're seeing the actual walls being built, sort of
Right.
thing. It's I, I, I guess sort of like an abstract. You're not actually building anything. You're just putting a card on the map and covering up the image. But it's pretty cool. It's a neat little touch as far as really driving sort of that theme home. And that's honestly like that's the if you can wrap your head around
That's it.
those three, yeah,
Yeah.
actions, that's it. The
Yeah.
complication comes of what do I do when, how do I get the resources to do everything? I'm short this and I'm short this, and so then you're spending turns to try and set up a future turn so that you can have a big turn, and so you can't do everything naturally with many games. This is kind of a thing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the standout to this game is the action selection mechanism,
Sure.
which revolves around those three areas, right? So each area or action, however you want to say it, is associated with a color. So the temple, the Levites, like you were saying, and the altar, that's all red. The scribes, that's all blue, and then all the construction stuff, rebuilding the walls, gray. And you're laying down, in Garphill style villager cards. Um, and they have a certain number. Every villager has three banners, and they're all of, a mix of those colors. And you lay down six cards, but there's only three slots. So you're putting down three cards, and then you have to start covering up cards as you go, which covers up those banners and, with new ones. And the number of banners you have impacts the strength of the action. So it sets up this sort of like you get a handful of cards and you might say, okay, I want to do the blue actions this round. But once you've place down your three, I don't know, let's say your biggest blue action cards. Now you're starting to cover those over. So you can't just focus on one thing. It really forces you to do at least two of the actions. You kind of
Yeah.
have to do all three, but it forces you to really focus on like focus on two or do like one heavy and maybe the other two half and half, right? Like you can't just stick with one thing.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. It's yeah, you're making trade-offs on how you want to do that. And you're right, just because of the way the cards are set up and how you can only have three of your six cards down, it forces you, yeah, to make those choices of okay, this card that gives me three red banners, I'm gonna keep that around as long as I can so I can take red actions. But at some point, I'm going to have to cover that up, and then if I still want to take a red action, I'm severely limited at that point because that card is buried, right?
Hmm.
And that's if you pull it up. And then I think the other really neat thing about this one is it has this mechanic where at the end of a round, you tuck one of these cards. So you take it completely out of the game, out of the game's the wrong word, out of your hand, and you tuck it under basically your player board. And then that becomes a scoring condition as well as an additional banner of essentially the most common color on that card. That's not always true, but for the most part, because some of them are all three colors, and then whatever the top color is the card. It's the color that the banner is going to share once you tuck it.
Which stays
So
around permanently.
which stays around permanently. So this
Yeah.
is fascinating because a you can build that sort of tableau as you're tucking the card. So you tuck one card the first round, two the second round, and a fourth on the so one more on the fourth on the third round, right? So you get a total of four of these cards. So those scoring conditions on them can be extremely important, especially the ones you get out earlier on. If you
Yeah.
can get close or max out a scoring condition on one of those cards in turn in round one, then it will score for the all three rounds, right? And that could be, I, I think some of them are five, some of them are 8 points. Very rare to max out an 8 point card on a on the first
On
round.
round one. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But I have, especially in solo, I have maxed out some of the, 5, 6 point cards. And then, 6, 12, 18 points throughout the game, right? So that can be it's an interesting thing of okay, do I want to max out this card? Or do I want to work on other things to try and balance everything out? Because oftentimes what'll happen is you'll max out a card and then maybe you don't have enough food to feed your workers at the end of the round and you lose some points that way. So that
Yep.
is not really getting max points because you lost points, but
Yeah.
but the other thing behind it is because of that banner, it really makes you think of, okay, what actions am I going to do in the future, right? And if you focus too much on putting, say, red banner cards, tucking those behind your player board, then come the end of the game, like the last round, you go, okay, I'm really good at taking red actions, but I've maxed out the entire red action, area sort of thing, and I can't take, I really can't take any more actions there. So the whole last round, you're just those cards are not doing anything for you versus, a strategy that sort of has a combination of those banners in your tuck cards allows you to kind of get a little bit of a bump on any action in that
Right.
last round, which is kind of nice, right? So, yeah, interesting dynamic there as well.
It's interesting you say that because the one thing I find is, let's say you're focusing on red actions,
Mhm.
like in your example, and you've got the card that gives you three red banners. Well, if you tuck it, you might want to tuck it early because usually those ones have very good scoring conditions and they're usually focused on that action. So I think for the one with three red banners, it's your number of Levites, right?
Yeah.
Which is the main thing you're doing if you're playing red. But then if you tuck that card, it gives you one permanent red banner, sure. But you're losing two red banners to do
Yeah.
that, right? Like that's your three banner card, and now it's out of your hand or your it's out of your deck, I should say, and giving you one permanent red. So it's like it's this trade-off where okay, maybe if you've built up, let's say four tucked cards, well, actually by the end of round three, it would be no, sorry, by the end of round two, it would be three tucked cards.
Three tuck cards. Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, now your pool of red cards is weaker in your deck, and as you're drawing cards, then there's fewer of them. So yeah, it's so neat. It's fascinating that way.
It's one of those things where you really have to, if you're going to tuck one of those three banner cards on round one, that's that's a big like that's a choice, a big choice you're making, right? Like you're saying, I can do this without this card, even though that's like those cards are generally, yeah, I mean it's three banners, right? Like if you look strictly at just red, that one card will allow you to burn one wood at the altar and move two spots on the altar track, which that means absolutely nothing unless you've played this game. But let me just say that it's a very little sort of movement. It's a nice move, but really what you want to do is the best turns kind of go off when you can line up like seven, maybe eight banners, maybe nine if you're building a wall or something, right? So when you
Yeah.
when you get up to those sort of combos of that many banners, then your turns start to really, okay, look, I'm removing all the rubble from this space on the board. I'm getting this bonus for doing it. Then I'm immediately building one of my walls and I'm getting this bonus for doing that, right? That's a huge turn in this game, right? And it's the same thing with the each of the tracks, right? Okay, I'm putting a scribe on a higher scribe level, and maybe I'm taking a tent action as well, right? Um,
Yeah.
those turns can really change. They score you a lot of points. What I'm trying to say, right? So they can change if you're having a sort of tough time doing things and you get a couple of the turns like that, then it can really, boost you ahead along that path towards sort of victory, right? So,
And that's what I liked this game about. I was focusing on blue, so I was focusing
mhm.
on the scholars. And like I said, I did a lot of the tent movement stuff. And that track gives you like bonuses of all kinds of things. So coins, movement on there's a track of they're like three different colored urns or something. I'm not sure what it represents, but if you can move up on all three tracks, you get a bonus like for every column that all three of those pass. So, and all three of those things show up on this tent track. So I'm going around there and it's giving you gold and stuff. So you can have a turn where, okay, I move, I get the coins. Oh, that number of coins lets me, maybe put up a scholar or a scribe, and then I move it again, which gives me a movement on the temple track. And then I get bonuses for that. And then I move it again, which moves my last turn into place. I get a bonus for that, right? Like, so, that like I had like a couple of those turns where it was just one thing after another and moving up like all over the board, which I thought was very, very cool.
Yeah, and if you've listened to the podcast for a while and have watched the channel as well, that's like one of my favorite aspects when you can combo of any game, when you can combo sort of turns together. Like, okay, I do this, which triggers this, which triggers this, I love that in games, right? And this
Mm.
game definitely has that where you're able to do that, and it feels good just trying to manage every aspect of it. You're right with those urns on your board. You're often, okay, I have two of them, to the next level. How do I get this third one so I can get that bonus, right? Well, if I build that wall over there, if I remove the rubble, I'll get that bonus, but I can't really build that wall. So maybe this one over here is the same urn, right? So there's a lot of, yeah, I just it makes for an interesting puzzle, having all
Yeah.
these sort of little things that you got to sort of focus on. And the other thing is, one of the things we didn't even touch on was even your player board has like 5 or 6 locations on it that you can upgrade. You spend specific resources, and that tile will flip over, and not only will it earn you extra victory points at the end of the game, but it also becomes more of a useful location on your board, which I find those locations can be very interesting as well. So two of the locations on the board are a sort of trader location, and I think the other one is it's like a shepherd or something. I don't think it's shepherd, but it's a the meeple shows the like a shepherd cane. Um, but essentially, those spots are the shepherd spot is you can take one of your workers, place it in there, and it'll give you bonus banners, right? So
Hmm.
on that big turn where you're trying to get 8 banners, sometimes it's, okay, I can add +2 to my red banners or something, or +3 to my red banners. Then if you upgrade that +3 to the red becomes +4, and the other +2 became +3 with a coin or something, right? So it adds that level of, okay, if I can upgrade this, even though it's going to cost me, say, 3 gold resources to do it, if I do it early enough, or if I'm just doing it even for the end game bonuses, it could really make a difference, right? When I
Hmm.
played with my wife, um, there was my final turn. It was kind of like, okay, I received a bunch of coins, and at the end of the game, you convert all your resources to coins, and then you convert them 5 to 1 uh, coins to victory points. Right? Well, I was short. It was just a combination of things. I was short 2 food. I was going to lose 2 victory points per food. But I had a bunch of coins, and I was able to spend 7 coins to upgrade sort of this my resource area. And so this flips over, then gives me an ability that during the sort of feeding portion, I can pull one of my workers off and reuse it to farm. Well, okay, that got me my my 2 food that I required, right? But I did have to spend 7 coins. But at the same time, when I upgraded that, I got a tent action, and I moved the tent, and it earned me 2 coins. So then I only really paid 5 coins, which at the end, 5 to 1 is 1 victory point to avoid losing, 4 victory points. So it's a, 3 victory point gain sort of thing, how the math works, right? And just that sort of, again, little puzzle thing to figure out. Okay, what am I going to do? I'm short food. Okay, if I upgrade this, I have the money to do that. Not only will it score me 2 points, but then I will not be short food, and all these little games kind of thing like that, right? So I thought it was
Hmm.
pretty neat. And then
Yeah.
our game was like, yeah, it was very much, we were just kind of nickeling and diming for each point we could get. Uh,
Yeah.
and it
I think
really came down to it too.
the second to last or third to last round, I don't know, it was like way too late, and I
It
got
was.
4 hours of sleep that night because I had to be up early for work.
Yeah, yeah.
But I spent probably 10 minutes looking at the board going, okay, I have this many banners. If I do this, that it's this many points. And if I do this many, I'm like, oh, but I'm forgetting, if I do this, I'm spending these coins. So then I'm not getting the victory points there, but I am adding victory points here. Oh, and then this is going to give me, and it just like the math was not straightforward, and it did take some thinking about.
Yeah.
And even in the end, I made a choice, but and then followed through and did something else, and I'm like, oh yeah, no, I didn't think about those points that I was getting. So it was, it, it it's cool. Yeah, that puzzle can be like very like difficult but rewarding, when you figure it out.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And I think
Hmm.
we ended the game. I had 114 points, and you had 115,
Yeah.
which was such a neat way to end it too, being that close, that tight
Yeah.
of a game,
Yeah.
right? And I really find with Garphill, somehow they've made that sort of, I don't know, they figured out that puzzle to really make games be very tight. Because everyone we've talked about, it's usually, even when we talked about it was one we played recently with when we did the Tome Saga. We started the Tome Saga on
Yeah. Architects.
Architects. Yeah, right. It was a difference of a few points.
Yeah.
And yeah, it just such it's very, very tight mechanics that really get you right there, and it's really neck and neck, right? And we didn't know which way it was going to go.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, one point that really shows that it was like, oh, okay, I'm really good over here, you're really good over there, and then
Yeah.
when we're counting, we're going through the list. Okay, 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 okay,
I
right?
was so excited because this is the fourth time that we've played together, and you've played more,
Yeah,
obviously,
yeah,
solo and whatever. Um, but it's the first time that I've actually won, and it was by 1 point.
yeah, yeah.
But I think like every time we play, you always go heavy on the red.
Yes, yeah,
Um, yeah, you really like those actions. And then I tend to shy away from that. Like you kind of have to because there's this, yeah, alter track
yeah, yeah,
where there's like basically moving goalposts and you have to move your like one little meeple along this track. And if you don't keep up with those moving goalposts, then you lose like you either lose food or you lose like it penalizes you. But
yeah,
if you can, be within the goalposts, you get bonuses. And if you can be ahead of the goalpost, you get more bonuses. So um you kind of have to do it, but because you focus on it, I tend to try something else.
yeah,
But what I really like is on your player boards, those spots you were talking about, where you've got a spot where you can, put a worker to get more banners. You can put a worker to do some trades, farming and whatever. Those spots on your player boards are tiles and they're variable from game to game. So and I'm going to get back to that in a second, but also variable setup on the blue scribe area, right?
yes,
So it gives a bunch of different bonuses, but they're always different. And the path, like not only are they different, there's a different arrangement, and you very much have to follow a path for those. So your player board can really like if you've got blue as your highest number of banners that you can get from putting a meeple there on your player board, that's almost like a trigger to go, well, maybe I should consider focusing on blue, right? Whereas if blue is like your fewest one, well, you're not going to get a great bonus for going that route. But then too, you have to have a good path, like a good number of bonuses that you think you can make work. And that's exactly what happened to me in this game. I saw a path of those bonuses on the scribe track that I was like, I think those are going to combo really well together if I can manage to get all those. And I had my top banner bonus slot was blue.
yeah,
So I was
yeah.
like, you know what? I'm going to focus on blue this round and or this game. And yeah, I did manage to get all of those ones. There was a couple of times where I was like lining up to take one of those scribe slots, which gives you like a permanent bonus for the rest of the game. And then you're like, okay, so I have, seven blue banners. And I was like, oh no, he's gonna take it. He's gonna take it. And then you just like moved on the tent or whatever. I was
Yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah.
oh, thank goodness. But then you instead, like, so you did a lot of red as you always do, but then
Yeah.
you built a lot of walls too, which so the blue scribe stuff gave me a lot of end game bonus points, but your walls gave you a ton of end game bonus points, right? So
I was so surprised with the walls too that like after we counted the points, I was like, that's it? Really? Because I spent a lot of work trying to build these walls, right? And I
Yeah.
mean, it was a decent amount of points. Don't get me wrong. Like I scored, I think, like 18 or 19 points on walls. And so, if you're thinking like 120, less 114 points, that's almost just under a fifth, of the points came from those walls, right?
But I'm checking
Um,
now, like what? So, yeah. I mean, and I think you get points throughout the game for those walls too, right?
there one of the
But
one of the walls does have like an immediate point that you'll score. Plus,
okay.
the walls is a good way of moving those the vials up as well, or the
Yes. Yeah.
yeah. So
Yeah.
and that can lead to points too. So there's a lot of things that like don't immediately get you point, but like tangibly will get you
Right.
points sort of thing, right? Like, okay, I built this wall and it made me move my tent, which caused me to get some points. So theoretically, yeah, that wall did score you those points. It's just the walls also score you end game points, right?
Yeah.
And those ones I like afterwards, I was like, oh, I was really hoping for more
But
work from those walls, right?
but your end game points for walls was 19 and my end game points for scribes was 18.
Yeah. So and that's what's interesting too, right? Because so the scribes have an interesting the fourth level of the scribes are basically victory point conditions, right? And you lined, it's hard to say. I feel like both were good, but they're not like game-breakingly good either, right?
Right.
But
Yeah.
they were enough to make you win by 1 point, kind of thing, right? So it's such an like if we take that into account, the extra points you got there with the scribes as well, then you were probably like 24 points or something like that, versus my 19 with the walls, right? And I guess the other difference, even if without those, so my 19 points, and then you said how many did you say you had with the
I had 18 with the
18 with the
scribes.
scribe? So if we just look at that 19 and 18,
Yeah.
my movement on the scribe track, I had one level one scribe. So that was 1 point. And
Right.
you built one gate. So that was 4 points. So,
Yes.
your dabble into the gates, into the wall building and stuff was better than my dabble into the scribe kind of
Right.
location, right? But
Yeah, yeah.
again, it's hard to pinpoint that stuff because the card that I picked got me resources that I needed to produce other victory points elsewhere, right? So it's a tough thing to be like, where did things go wrong? And really they didn't because we scored a point difference, right?
Yeah, yeah.
But
This
yeah,
was my
I
high
really like
score.
that. Yeah, oh yeah, we both did phenomenal.
Yeah.
As far from like a scoring perspective. I think the game I just played with my wife was like I scored 120, which 114 was my top score, and then 120 went above that. So like I had two really good games back to back, right? But yeah, like it was neat watching us go two different paths and then end up very close points wise. I
Yeah.
really like that. Yeah. Yeah. Wow.
How's it play solo?
Solo plays really well. So I mean, what you do in a solo game, and I haven't played in a while, but if I remember correctly, you essentially have a secondary player board that is the bots player board, and they have a little deck of cards that they'll flip, and that will determine sort of what actions they do. And oftentimes that will sort of like block you out or take the resources off the walls that you were going to, and give them bonuses and whatnot, right? And move their vials up and score them points that way too. So it plays I'd like it. I really like it actually. I've played it a number of times solo. And every time I've had a good challenge, but also, a fun challenge as well, right? I'd recommend this one at solo as well as with multiplayer. But
Mm.
again, it seems like this one seems to be the one game in the history line that almost gets ignored amongst everything else. And it's a shame because I feel like it's a hard one because I find the Garphill history lines are all very good games. I feel to me the weakest of the set is probably Raiders of Scythia, and I really like that game. But the only reason why I find it is the weakest is because there's also uh another
Raiders
one,
of the North Sea.
Raiders of the North Sea, in one of
Yeah.
the other lines. So it's
Yeah.
like it's the same game with some like it's like Raiders of the North, it's like 1.5 Raiders of the North came C 1.5
Yeah.
because they
Yeah.
added like I think a few things they wanted to add to that one, but didn't, and then so essentially like the eagles and the horses in that one.
Right.
um but then I think that one even got like a upgraded. Anyways, yeah. So it, it, it's hard because it's amongst a selection of games that are, I find, really really excellent games, right? And I think another like three more to this line already sort of announced, right? Like Assyria is should be retail soon, depending on retail with Garfield in
Yeah. I
North America is
don't know
is
if it's gonna hit
changing.
retail. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And then there's a couple more games this
The
year that
Great
they'll be releasing
Sea
too. Yeah, and then
and
Tower of Siftos, which is like a Greek themed
yes.
one,
Yeah. Yeah.
which I'm on board with. Yeah. Yeah. But no,
Yeah.
yeah,
Taking our
like I
money
said,
again.
yeah, yeah. This one, it's unfortunate that it sort of gets ignored, but and maybe because of that theme, but honestly, I don't know. I dig the theme. It feels neat that you're working with these Levites, you're working with these scribes, you're working the turns in a round. It's, you play 6 days taking turn, and your seventh day is the Sabbath. So it's very, it's got that sort of theme. And then that's where you're doing all the end game or the end round cleanup steps and feeding your workers. And yes,
Yeah.
it's got that religious sort of theme, but it's a board game. Like it's supposed, it's supposed to be fun, and it is fun, and that adds to the flavor of this game, right? So yeah, I highly recommend this one.
And that wraps up another episode of the Current Plays podcast. Check us out next week on YouTube or your favorite podcast provider. But until then, good gaming and good night.
Good night, folks.